3 years away from the mountain felt like a lifetime. When I finally turned my truck off the cracked forest road, the air smelled exactly the same. Pine, wet soil, and smoke from someone's distant fireplace. My cabin sat right where I left it, tucked beneath tall spruce, a little weathered, but solid. It had always been more than a place to sleep. It was my peace. My father and I built that porch with our own hands. Every nail, every plank, ours. But something felt off the moment I rolled to a stop. A bright red sign nailed to my own gate caught my eye. No trespassing. Private property. HOA enforced. I laughed out loud at first. The mountain had no HOA. It never did. Then I noticed the second sign, smaller, right under it, stamped with a logo that looked official. Ridgepoint Community Association. That wasn't there before. Neither were the new street lamps along the dirt road or the mailbox cluster painted forest green. Someone had moved in. I got out of my truck, boots crunching the gravel, and pushed the gate open. Chains clinked against the post, new polished steel. My chains were old iron, left rusted from years of rain. Someone replaced them. Someone thought they could claim this. As I walked toward the porch, I spotted tire marks that didn't belong to me. They curved in tight circles like someone had been parking here regularly. Then came the voice. "Sir, can I help you?" A woman stepped out from the tree line, holding a clipboard and wearing a navy jacket with the same Ridgepoint logo on it. Mid-40s, polished, sharp eyes that scanned me like I was a trespasser. "I live here," I said. "No, you don't," she replied. "This property is now under association management. If you have business here, you'll need to speak with our board president." I blinked, trying not to laugh again. "Board president?" "Yes, Mrs. Karen Whitmore. She's handling all the new residents' compliance files." I stared at her, then past her, at my own cabin, my woodpile, my rocking chair still on the porch, half covered in dust. I hadn't sold this land, never even listed it. "Lady, this is my home." She gave a rehearsed smile. "That's not what our records show." She handed me a paper, an HOA welcome packet. My name wasn't on it. And that's when the anger really set in. I'd been away tending to my mother's health in Arizona. Taxes, paid, deed, in my safe. I'd trusted the mountain to stay quiet while I was gone. But while I was gone, someone had decided to turn it into a community. And apparently I was no longer welcome in it. I walked past her without saying a word, straight up the porch steps. The key still fit. That click was the sweetest sound I'd heard in years. Inside, the air was stale but familiar. My tools were where I'd left them. A photo of my father still hung above the fireplace. Everything was fine, until I saw the note taped to the kitchen counter. "This structure violates HOA exterior code. Please contact us to discuss removal or repainting." Removal. I stepped back outside. The woman was already on her radio, speaking fast, eyes darting toward me. 2 SUVs pulled up minutes later, one with flashing amber lights on top. More association officers. The lead driver got out, short haircut, tan jacket, clipboard in hand. "Sir, this property is under HOA jurisdiction. You're trespassing." "I built this place," I said quietly. He looked at me unimpressed. "Then you'll need to prove that in court. For now, I suggest you leave before we call county enforcement." Something inside me went cold. I didn't shout, didn't threaten. I just stood there, staring past them at the land my father and I had cleared together. The hill where we set fence posts, the stream where we used to fish. They were standing on my history, pretending it was theirs. I nodded slowly. "All right," I said. "You've made your point." Then I got in my truck, backed up to the gate, and stopped for a moment, just long enough to take one last look. The red "No Trespassing" sign flapped against the post in the wind, sunlight glinting off the chain they'd used to close my gate. They thought I'd leave for good. But they didn't know me. I'd be back, with proof, with the deed, and with every ounce of stubbornness my father left in me. Because no HOA on earth was going to take my mountain. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, because I was awake with purpose. The moment I got back to town, I pulled out my old safe from the storage unit I'd rented before leaving for Arizona. Inside was the only thing that ever really proved the mountain was mine, a thin stack of papers bound in a rubber band. The original deed, my father's signature still faintly visible at the bottom. You could fake documents, you could push rules, you could bluff people, but you couldn't rewrite a deed recorded in the county archive 50 years ago. I drove straight to the county office the next morning. The clerk was a kid, maybe 25, clicking through screens with one AirPod in. When I handed him the papers, he looked confused. This lot number doesn't match the Ridgepoint subdivision, sir. I smiled. Exactly. He typed a few more things. Looks like your property was never part of that development. It wasn't, I said. But someone's treating it like it is. He leaned closer. You should probably talk to the county assessor or legal division. Someone's filed boundary extensions. That's not supposed to happen without notice. Boundary extensions. That's HOA speak for, we decided your land's ours now. By noon, I had copies of every record they'd filed. The HOA president, Karen Whitmore, had submitted a community expansion permit, claiming adjacent parcels were unclaimed woodland. They marked mine as Lot 17. The county, understaffed and careless, approved it. That's how they got away with it. A clerical oversight. I stared at those papers for a long time before calling an old friend, Dale, ex-cop, good with paperwork. He picked up with his usual dry humor. Garrett, haven't heard from you since you almost burned your own porch fixing that stove. Yeah. Well, I said, I've got a new fire to deal with. That night, Dale and I sat at the diner, going over every form. He tapped his pen on the table. This is fraud, pure and simple. You've got the original deed, dated decades before their charter. They can't annex land like that without the owner's consent. So I can take it back? Not just take it back, he said. You can make them pay for trying. The next morning I returned to the mountain. This time I brought copies of the deed, county maps, and a witness, Dale. When we pulled up, Karen was there. She stood by her SUV, arms folded, clipboard ready, like she'd been waiting. Well, she said, I was hoping you'd come back to clear this up. You're trespassing again. Dale stepped forward. Ma'am, before you keep talking, you might want to look at this. He handed her a certified copy from the county office. Her face didn't move, but her fingers tightened on the paper. I don't know what this is supposed to prove, she said. That you're standing on private property that doesn't belong to your association, I said calmly. Behind her, 2 other HOA board members looked uneasy. One whispered something about calling the legal team. I took a slow step forward. You filed false boundary paperwork. You nailed signs on my trees. You chained my gate. That's trespassing. Karen's eyes narrowed. You think a judge will believe that? I don't need him to believe me, I said. I just need him to read the county records. For the first time, her voice cracked. You can't what? I asked. Live on my own land? She turned away, snapping her clipboard shut. We'll resolve this legally. Good, I said. Because I brought the law with me. Dale smiled slightly, flashing his old badge out of habit. County Sheriff's Office still respects property lines. Ma'am, that shut her up. We watched her drive off, tires spitting gravel, her SUV disappearing down the dirt road. The silence that followed was heavy. For the first time in years, the mountain sounded like itself again. Wind through pine needles. A crow calling somewhere far off. But it wasn't over. The next day, a letter arrived at my P.O. box, certified mail from Ridgepoint Legal. They were filing an injunction, accusing me of illegal occupancy and vandalism. They wanted me fined $50,000. Dale looked at it and laughed. They're desperate, maybe, I said, but they're loud. And loud people scare quiet judges, so I made my next move quieter, but sharper. I started documenting everything. Photos, videos, timestamps, even the replacement chains they'd used. I had Dale contact a surveyor who'd worked for the county 30 years ago. The man remembered marking my land. He even had original notes in storage. That was the nail in the coffin. A week later, I walked into court with a folder thicker than a Bible. Karen and her lawyer sat at the other table, all confidence and polished smiles. The judge flipped through the paperwork, expression flat. Then he stopped, looked up at Karen. You filed boundary expansion over recorded private land? Her lawyer stammered something about administrative error. The judge sighed. I'll be issuing an immediate injunction in favor of Mr. Garrett. Ridgepoint HOA is to remove all signage, barriers, and documentation referencing Lot 17. You will also cover his legal fees." Karen's face went pale. When I walked out, the air outside felt lighter. I drove straight back to the mountain, pulled down every red sign, cut through every chain, and stacked the metal by the road for them to collect. The mountain was quiet again. But I knew people like Karen don't quit just because a judge tells them to. They get creative, and I was ready for whatever came next. A few quiet weeks passed after the court ruling, long enough for the pines to stop whispering bad memories and the cabin to feel like mine again. I fixed the porch rail, oiled the hinges, even rebuilt the old fence line my father once called the edge of our world. The mountain was healing, and so was I. Then one morning I heard engines. Not one, several. I stepped out onto the porch and saw 3 trucks crawling up the dirt road. One had a Ridgepoint logo on the side, another carried lumber and a portable generator. The third was a tow truck. Karen was back. She got out wearing aviator sunglasses, followed by 2 men with clipboards and orange vests. "Garrett," she called out, all smiles now. "We're just here to carry out the easement adjustment." "Easement?" I said. "You lost that case." "Yes," she said. "But our new community plan includes an access trail that happens to cut through this part of your property. County approved it last week." Dale wasn't around this time, but his advice echoed in my head. Always record everything. So I pulled out my phone. "You're saying the county approved construction on private property?" Karen nodded like a politician caught mid-lie, but doubling down anyway. "Public access, technically." The crew started unloading equipment. I walked down the steps slowly. "You touch one tree on this land and you'll regret it." Her smile faltered. "You can't threaten workers, Garrett." "We'll call the sheriff." "Go ahead," I said. "Tell him to bring the paperwork." She didn't call. She just stood there, calculating. I could see the panic hiding behind her sunglasses. She wasn't expecting resistance this time. I pulled out a folder from my truck, copies of the same court injunction, plus the updated land survey Dale had filed after the ruling. It included a permanent restriction against unauthorized construction. I handed it to one of the workers. "Read that before you touch anything." They hesitated. The foreman looked at Karen. "Ma'am, this says the property line's closed to any HOA activity." "We could get fined." Karen snatched it from him. "Ignore that. We have authorization." He frowned. "Not my problem then." He waved to his crew. "Pack it up." The sound of tailgates slamming shut was music. Karen's jaw tightened. "You think this is over?" she hissed. I shrugged. "No, but you just made it easier for me to finish it." That afternoon, I drove down to the county again, this time with video evidence of their second trespass attempt. I didn't even need to speak much, just played the footage for the county officer. He sighed. "She's pushing limits again? You want to file a harassment claim?" "Not yet," I said. "Just want this on record." But word travels fast in small counties. 2 days later, Karen got a call from the sheriff's office. They warned her that any further action on my property would be considered criminal trespass. She didn't come back after that. A week later, a letter arrived. No envelope, no signature, just a folded page tucked under my cabin door. "You win, Garrett, but this place will never belong to you alone. Communities grow. You can't stop progress." I stared at the note for a long time, then burned it in the fireplace. Watching the edges curl and blacken felt like closing a book I'd been stuck in for too long. Progress, I thought. People like her call it that. But this mountain wasn't about progress. It was about memory. That weekend, I put up my own sign at the gate. Plain wood, no fancy print. Private property, owned and protected by Garrett family since 1971. I chained the gate again, this time with the same old iron chain my father used, the one that never broke, only rusted stronger. Then I sat on the porch as the sun went down behind the trees, golden light hitting the roof. The same roof they'd tried to take from me. Maybe someday someone else will want this land. Maybe someone will offer money or argue paperwork again, but they'll never understand what it really is. It's not just dirt and timber. It's a promise. And promises, real ones, don't get rewritten by HOAs. The mountain was quiet again that night. Not silent, just peaceful. And for the first time in 3 years, so was I.